10 unbelievable discoveries made in Antarctica. 5 crates of 100-year-old McKinley whiskey. 5 crates with 11 bottles of whiskey had been discovered in Antarctica back in 2006 in the hut of an explorer named Ernest Shackleton. They were all wrapped in paper and straw to ensure the bottles were properly protected. It must have been a rough trip for Shackleton back in 1907 to Antarctica. Due to the extremely cold conditions, the liquid was then frozen, but once it was brought to room temperature, the whiskey was finally back to normal. Since it had been historically significant, these precious findings were naturally stored safely. A sample was then given to the Scottish distiller White and McKinley. Scientists from New Zealand had even examined the bottles and discovered that the alcohol content in the whiskey was still intact. Meteorite from Mars in Antarctica. A piece of a Martian meteorite was discovered by American meteor hunters in Antarctica's Allen Hills on 27th of December 1984. After extensive research in 1996, a scientist had claimed to have discovered life in the form of bacteria on Mars thanks to the extremely microscopic fossils on the meteorite. The news had spread quicker than expected and eventually gained the attention of the world. Bill Clinton, who was the U.S. president back then, also mentioned all the possible discoveries that could come of this. However, the scientific community rejected these hypotheses, and all the unusual bits of evidence were then used to prove that the possibility didn't exist. The event was incredibly controversial, to begin with, which was much later proved to be inappropriate. But all of the public attention and published papers made it a historically significant event in the astrobiology field. A surgeon's 100-year-old notebook. This old book had belonged to Robert Scott and was said to be from his very last expedition in Antarctica. George Levick, the original owner, was a surgeon and photographer who had accompanied Scott during this expedition right from 1910 to 1913 to Antarctica. Scott, a British explorer, had gained significant fame in the heroic age of Antarctica exploration. In March 1912, during his return journey, Scott sadly passed away with his comrades. The book was frozen in ice for almost 100 years, resulting in the pages getting stuck together. The bindings of this book had also dissolved. Despite this, whatever material was readable, it was rather exciting. There were various descriptions of photos that George had taken at Cape Adare in 1911. The book had been discovered by another Scott camp back in January 2013. As the summer snow had melted, the base of Cape Evans was exposed, which led to the discovery of the book. Surprising former resident. When Antarctica was a much warmer place, it was also home to dinosaurs and lush plant life. And, before the dinosaurs roamed this place, an iguana-like Triassic reptile once called the Antarctica home. Researchers had announced the discovery of the reptile, which was dubbed the Antarctanax Shackletoni. The 250-million-year-old creature was said to be an archosaur, which was a precursor to the lineage that would then branch into dinosaurs, crocodilians and pterosaurs. This animal grew to nearly 4 to 5 feet long and scuttled around what was once the Antarctic forest floor. Shackleton's lost ship. In 1915, the Endurance, which was helmed by Sir Ernest Shackleton, slipped underneath the Weddell Sea and was crushed by the relentless Antarctic ice. Shackleton and his men quickly abandoned the ship and were left trapped in pack ice for months. They set off on a long 720 nautical mile journey in lifeboats towards South Georgia Island, where they were finally rescued. The crew had also recorded the last position of the Endurance, raising hopes that the wreck might someday be found. Seals with superpowers. In 2014, the National Science Foundation announced that the scientists had discovered Weddell seals having a sixth sense. Weddell seals have certain biological adaptations that allow them to dive deep, as much as hundreds of meters, especially while hunting. It's also an uncanny ability to find the breathing holes they require on the surface. of the ice just by using the magnetic field of the Earth as a natural GPS. A rare lava lake. In modern times, Antarctica still holds many surprises. Take Saunders Island, for example, a volcanic protrusion located in the South Sandwich Islands. Mount Michael, the volcanic summit on the island, holds one of only 8 lava lakes in existence. Scientists discovered this crater lake thanks to thermal imaging received from satellite data. Unlike most of the exposed lava on the Earth's surface, the lake still remains molten. Mummified penguins. When you think of mummies, you usually think that you'd find them in hot deserts. But this theory was changed when scientists discovered at least hundreds of mummified penguins on East Antarctica's Long Peninsula back in 2016. Even though Antarctica is extremely cold, it still comes under the desert category as it receives quite little precipitation, and the cold, dry conditions had effectively mummified these birds. Many of these penguins were only chicks. But all these penguins did not pass away at the very same time. Radiocarbon dating had revealed the approximate age of the penguins, and it turned out that most of the birds passed away almost several decades and during 2 very different periods. Some were 200 years ago, and some were about 750 years ago. Both events were very likely a result of habitat disruption from extreme weather conditions. The age of the ice. With the help of krypton dating technology, scientists have been able to confirm the age of a sample of Antarctic ice, and the result was 120,000-year-old ice. The discovery of the ice's age even allows scientists to explore the climate of the Earth much farther back into history. It also potentially helps understand the mechanisms that cause the planet to shift in and out of ice ages. Upside-down rivers. Antarctica's ice sheets are rather complex on their undersides as they are up top. A newly published study found that massive under-ice rivers of warm water ransack the continent's ice shelves below. These ice shelves are the only portion of the ice sheets that continue to protrude over the ocean. Scientists soon observed certain areas of these sheets that seem to crack and sometimes melt through with each passing year. They found that these particular areas are undermined by warm ocean currents that somehow flow like rivers and melt the ice above.